That's my dad, he's the one who keeps me safe while having fun. Oh yeah, he's really smart. He's on watch, high alert, making sure I don't get hurt. Oh yeah, he's a work of art. Safe and sound, both feet on the ground. Was lost, but now I'm found. As long as Dad's around, I'll be safe and sound. We play catch, I'm the ball. He promises me I'll never fall. Oh yeah, oh no. One time I did. Ask Mom about that one. He takes me out for a ride, and to this day I've never died. Oh yeah, still here, I'm a lucky kid. Safe and sound, both feet on the ground, like a puppy in the pound. As long as Dad's around, I'll be safe and sound. Well, the big guy put me on his knee and said, kid, no matter what you do or see, in troubled times stick close to me, and there's one thing that you'll always be, and that's safe and sound, both feet on the ground, like a puppy in the pound. As long as I'm around, as long as he's around, as long as Dad's around, I'll be safe and sound.
There are lots of things that normal people can do, but dads can't, like win races. Every time my dad and I have a race on the dairy, Dad loses. When dads play hide and seek, they're always really easy to find, but they're not very good at finding you. Don't tell them. Dads can't bowl cricket balls very hard or hit them very far, and they always lose at cards and board games and almost every kind of game. Dads really like things like fishing and going to sports games, almost every kind of game. But they don't like to go alone. They like to read books, but not by themselves. Dads always need to make a kiss goodnight before bedtime. They can't sleep unless you do. There are lots of things that dads can't do. It's amazing they get through life at all. Yeah, but one thing dads really can't do is give up. Dads can't ever give up, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how tired they are. Dads can't ever quit because we need them. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad. You're really awesome. Happy Father's Day!
Yeah, hooray for YouTube, huh? So many great treasures on YouTube. In researching for today, I was trying to find some useful insights and stories, and actually I ran across one that I think a lot of us dads can relate to. It's about a young couple, and they had their first baby, and the mom had to go out to run errands. So she was actually going to run errands for the whole day. It was the first time that this dad was alone taking care of the baby full time. So yeah, it's great. He's so happy and they're having a good time. But at some point the baby starts crying and fussing and crying. The dad, he tries to feed her and he checks her. He does all kinds of things, and he starts panicking because the baby just won't stop crying. So eventually, after an hour or so of this, he takes the baby to the emergency room of the hospital. And they go to the hospital and takes the baby in, and the doctor checks the baby out and checks the tonsils and checks everything, and then discovers that the baby hadn't been changed. So the doctor comes out and tells the dad, he says, look, the baby is fine and healthy and everything. The reason the baby was crying was because the diaper hadn't been changed. And so the dad looked at the doctor and he said, that doesn't make sense. The diapers I bought said that they were good for at least 10 pounds. So some of us can probably relate, but the first time being a dad. Well, for those of us who are a little bit older and have kids who are a little bit older, I found this kind of interesting letter from a student at college, right? Dear Dad, school is really great. I'm making lots of friends and studying very hard with all my stuff. I simply can't think of anything I need. So if you would like, you can just send me a card, as I would love to hear from you. Love, your son. See, once you get into college, you get this special way of communicating with your parents, right? So, of course, his dad writes back. Dear son, I know that astronomy and economics and oceanography are not enough to keep even an honor student busy. Do not forget that the pursuit of knowledge is a notable task, and you can never study enough. So, yeah. So, the dads and moms are different. Yes? The way that, I don't think you would have seen too many moms throwing the baby up in the air, or a lot of the things that we saw on the video. But it's amazing because one of the most important things in the divine principle, at the very beginning, is starting out with the affirmation that God is not just Heavenly Father, but also our mother, Heavenly Parent. God is our Heavenly Parent. From the Bible, God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him male and female. He created them. So important in the divine principle is this amazing truth that God is represented through parents, through two parents, through a couple. This is why in our unification movement we hold the family to be so important and so sacred, because God actually can express God's own nature through a couple completely. Through a man or a woman alone, God's full nature can't be expressed. As we know, God's masculinity is expressed through father's love, and God's femininity is expressed through mother's love. And these are very different types of love. And the foundation for the family is a true love family, is that unity between husband and wife, creating the basis where God can dwell on earth, represented by the parents, and the children can experience God initially through their parents. Now, tragically, we know that's not our experience, but this is God's design and God's plan, is that our children, when they look at the parents, they should see God. And in fact, even if we are imperfect, children at an early age, they think their parents are God, because God designed it that way. And when we come to the realization that our parents aren't perfect, it's kind of shocking. It's like a developmental crisis that a lot of psychologists talk about. Wait a minute, my God is no longer so perfect after all. And in God's ideal, of course, we would grow, and through our experiencing God through our parents, we would naturally develop our own unique relationship with God. So let me share some words from Father Moon, the founder of our church. Parents cannot force their children to be filial, teaching them to be dutiful. The thought of being filial, which means faithful and loyal to your parents, should come from the heart. Therefore, it cannot come true overnight. It should influence them for a long time. A father should show a good model of himself in daily life. This is going to be the most important point for today, being a model in life. Husbands should tell their children that their mother is a person to be much more respected than any other great men's wives in history. And she is different from other mothers in loving the world and the country. The desire to do good, the motivation to make a positive effect in the world, comes at an early age from our experience with our parents. Actually, the motivation of heart to do things for the benefit of others, it first comes from our relationship with our parents. Very fundamentally, before we even know what we're doing, we want to do things that get a positive response from our parents. We're programmed that way. God designed us that way. And psychologists have spent a lot of time figuring out the superego and the ego development and all these different aspects. But even at the very beginning, the parents are the most important in shaping who we are and how we see the world. So our connection with our parents is very important and fundamental to who we become in life. The motivation of heart, that desire to do things, to be motivated, ultimately it goes back to a deep, profound connection that we have with our physical parents. And as we grow, that connection should expand and is designed to connect to God, our heavenly parent. So let's look at some of even the definition of father's love and mother's love. This is from Erik Erikson. You may not be aware of him, but he's a well-known psychosocial psychologist. He developed a whole system about how we develop and go through stages, psychosocial development, how our psychology develops and our relationships with people develop. And this is an excerpt from his writing. He says, fathers love more dangerously. Now, did we kind of see that in the video? Where fathers loving a bit more dangerously than moms? Their love is also more expectant and more instrumental than mother's love. That means it's more demanding. Fathers tend to not be as unconditional. Get your grades up. They tend to be the ones who are the taskmasters. Let's look at just the difference, a general difference between mother's love and father's love. Now, we live in a spectrum. God created us to all be unique and amazing beings. So some fathers are also express some of the more feminine aspect of love, and some mothers expect more of the masculine aspect of love. That's natural, God's design. The key is the partnership between husband and wife. The partnership between parents to be able to give the children the full range of love that we all need, that we need to experience. So let's look at mother's love. Mother's love is clearly very caring. It's more unconditional, about protecting the child. You could call it soft love, the kind of nurturing, embracing, warm and fuzzy kind of love. And it's important for building a secure foundation of just knowing as a unique being that I am loved. It's at the core. It's our first experience in our life, is experiencing love from our mother, knowing that we have value because our mother loves us. This is so important and so critical for all of us as human beings. Even, stories from Romania, when they found all these children that were just left in an orphanage, and they were given plenty of food and water and changed and medical care and like that, but they were never really held or touched or loved. And so when the government fell and the workers went in, what they did was they brought in a whole bunch of grandmothers to just go around and pick up the babies and hug the babies and carry them around and coo with them and just give them an experience of love. Because the babies that didn't have that, they died. They would die within a year. They wouldn't even live to be a year old without that touch, that nurturing kind of experience that's so critical to us as human beings. So mother's love is the foundation that everything else builds upon. Now, father's love, we could say father's love is a bit more on the challenging side. It's a bit more conditional. Father is probably going to be the more one that's complaining about do your work, or you're not doing your work, or you're not up to standard, or more judgmental in a way. Fathers tend to encourage risks more. We can call it hard or tough love. But what fathers love is also important for building confidence in the world. Our fathers, most often, not universally, but are the ones who are interacting with the workplace and business and outside world, and show an example of how to interact with the world and help the child develop confidence and understanding about how do I relate with other people in the world. How do I interact? So clearly there's a substantial difference. The most obvious thing is how do parents act when the child is climbing up a tree? What does mom say? She says, "Be careful, get down, don't fall, be careful, be careful, be careful." What does the dad say? He says, "Oh, see how high you can go. See how high you can make it." And of course, ideally the father also, make sure you stay on the thick branches, okay? Gives a little wisdom too, right? Besides just go for it. But oftentimes father's job is, let's go for it. Who spends more time tickling their kids? Usually, it depends. The rough house and wrestling, that's going to be dad. Challenging. What's the mom? She's more comforting and cooing. We're all, there's a whole range for us there. But in general, we know we need both these kinds of love. We need a love that gives us a foundation where we feel safe and secure. And we need a love that pushes us out, that challenges us, that pushes us to extend our limits beyond where we are. Otherwise, we won't grow. In fact, there's a whole shift in our culture in America today that emphasizes we should not do this risky things. Dads that let their kids climb trees are neglectful or child abusers because they're risking their kids' lives. This kind of, we don't want to risk any kids' lives, right? We want to be careful. I'm not encouraging you. Please don't do this at home. But that's our role, is the challenge. And when we start taking that way, what happens is that we live in a world where we're just trying to be comfortable and safe. And we're afraid to take risks, afraid to step out and take challenges. So these early experiences with both father and mother are so critical for us in our development. There's a research study that I read about. It happened last year. It's quite fascinating. I put the name up here because I couldn't remember the whole name. It's published in one of these personality and psychological reviews, so it's kind of a very academic kind of article. But it's called The Transnational Relations Between Perceived Parental Acceptance and Personality Dispositions of Children and Adults, a Meta-Analytic Review. Now, do you know more than when I started reading that? Basically, as you can see at the top, it was an analysis of 36 different international studies that people have done over actually about 50 years, the last 50 years. They looked at all these different studies on how parents interact with children and what kind of outcomes come from that. And then they compared all these different studies. So that's why it's called a meta-analysis, because it's looking at all these different things. And what came from the results that they got from that are quite interesting, because the study showed that father's influence is much larger than anyone had previously documented or reported. It's kind of mentioned here and there, but always the emphasis is that it's the mom. If the kid's all messed up, it's the mom's fault. So there's a lot more information here that talks about the impact that fathers have on children. So this is based on the perceived father's love, how much the child felt that they perceived that father loved them and accepted them. Now, there's the word perceived here is important, because most dads, we love, care, and accept our children, but our children don't always know that. And so this is based on perception, not on necessarily what the dad thinks is happening. So it showed that actually those that perceived and experienced that, they were less hostile to others in their daily life and experience. They were more easily independent, more comfortable being independent. They tend to have a healthy self-esteem. They had feelings of adequacy, like they were confident and sufficient to take on any challenge that might come up. They were more emotionally stable and responsive in emotional situations, and in general had a more positive worldview. In fact, when they took this study and then they controlled for, okay, well, the mom also is making an impact, but when they removed the moms and just so they controlled for that, they could clearly say that the father's love more strongly could predict how a child would turn out than even the mother's love, perceived love. It more strongly predicted satisfaction of that child when they grew up, the well-being, and also that feeling of father's love acted as a better buffer against problems like substance abuse and depression. So father's presence is really important for children growing up. That experience of father's love, father's caring love. Now, there's the experience of feeling rejected or disapproval or lack of love from the father. Those young people tended to grow up and develop more problems with anger or being aggressive or bullies. They tended to have a lower self-esteem, feelings of inadequacy, tended to be more emotionally unstable, and unresponsive to others. And their worldview was not so positive or optimistic. And the father's rejection, as it says here, more strongly predicted 4 key child behaviors than even mothers. Behavioral problems, substance abuse, drug and alcohol, depression, and overall maladjustment. So what these studies do is they document something that we kind of already knew. We know that fathers are important, but this study shows that it's even more significant and important in terms of young people's adaptation to the world around us, to our environment. So in thinking about this and looking at a lot of fathers' words, and even a lot of the religious people in the world looking at the challenge that we're having today with the breakdown of the family, we can say strongly that Satan's main strategy has 2 main strategies for destroying the family. And we can see it clearly happening in America. In the first place is separating husbands from wives. So the breakdown of family starts with the breakdown between husband and wife. So really important in our families and in our marriages is the investment that husbands and wives make in each other. Now, in the world, there's all kinds of things that can separate us from each other. We can be more involved in work, just working, and all the time focusing on work and not so much time focused at home or with my spouse. Actually, this applies for both of us, right? The husband and the wife. Doing things away from the family and separating from the family. For men also, the challenge of pornography, a tragic poison and addiction that destroys relationships. It's incredible, and especially with the spread of that kind of stuff on the internet, it kills relationships. It's deadly poison. Pornography is more serious than heroin or methamphetamine or any of these other drugs, because it poisons our spirit and poisons relationships, particularly between husband and wife. So that separating husband from wife, this is Satan's key to destroying families. When husband and wife are in conflict and they don't get along, they're not working together as a team, then the children are definitely suffering. And that shows up in the next generation, which is a challenge that America, that the world is having now, when we have more families. That single parenting, God bless single moms, because it's hard and they do the best they can. But the truth is, we know we need both. We need both to really do the best. And it's wonderful that we are so adaptable and amazing people, that in spite of our challenges and hardships, we can overcome and we can grow. But still, the importance of keeping marriages together and husband and wife growing and developing themselves as a team, as a partnership, is critical, not just for our own happiness, but also for our children and for the future generations. The second is separating fathers from children. This is also something that work tends to do. Dads, sometimes we come home and I'm just exhausted from work, and it's like, I don't have time to play with the kids. I just want to sit back and decompress. Well, what we're doing is we're missing a huge chance, a huge opportunity to have a positive experience in relationship and interaction. So it means we need to invest ourselves. We need to make that effort, take time and effort to establish and build that relationship. Because this is what Satan loves. Satan loves to convince the dads that, it doesn't matter, mom's taking care of the kids, and I can just go off and do my thing. And as long as mom's taking care of them. No, it's really important that we understand that, we remember that, and then we practice it. So, here's a few points, 5 points that I just want to make. I've been, a lot of the seminars that I've been listening to, particularly about witnessing and discipleship and like that, emphasize you can teach and talk to people all you want. Even we can teach people the divine principle and teach them about Father Moon over and over and over again. We can tell them with words. But what they really learn from is our lives, is our examples. And the opportunities to be together with us, interacting with us, is how people get inspired about our church, our movement, and can grow and see an example of growing. This is what we call mentoring or discipling, or helping to raise each other up. It requires relationship in all things. So for dads, actually for all of us, all parents, we teach our children what we do. No matter what we say, that expression, do what I say, not what I do, it does. You can say that all you want. It doesn't work. We copy, we imitate what we see. We learn most easily by modeling. And this is how we learn. So there's a challenge for us as parents to look at, what am I modeling? What is my example? Even my thinking, what is my example? So, first place we need to start is, we need to show an example of someone who has a loving relationship with God, our Heavenly Parent. Our relationship with God, our relationship with true parents, this is something that is at the core of us, and however much we want to talk about it, our young people need to see us in a living relationship with God and true parents. They need to experience prayer time with us. They need to learn and see what kind of inspirations and insights we get through our conversation, our interaction with God, our Heavenly Parent. They need to see us investing time in things like Untitled and prayer and meditation and study. Investing. We could tell them all we want that they should do it, but when they see us do it and they participate with us, that's when they'll learn. And that's also, same is true for spiritual children as well. Well, the second point is, we need to pay attention to our character. Again, we model and educate our children. We educate our children through our modeling, through our examples, what we're doing. Are we being ethical? Do we cut corners things? When I find that wallet, Do I think, oh wow, look, someone got some money, hooray? Or am I someone that goes, oh, let's help me. Let's go see if we can find who this belongs to, right? Are we showing our willingness to be sacrificial, even to sacrifice our time for the benefit of other people's? Or do we show an example of going out of our way to help someone else? We could talk about, oh, live for the sake of others, all we want. We need to show the example of taking actions that benefit other people, that care about other people. Our character, our children are going to reflect our character. It's actually kind of scary when you get older and you start reflecting on your life. Then you look at your parents, who are now much older, you go, man, I'm just like my dad. Oh no! Because it's very subliminal what happens, that development. And it's something that we can be conscious of and invest in. So let's invest in our character. Be people of character and quality in the decisions that we make and the example that we're being for our family. So husbands, third point, we need to show loving our spouse. Now, husbands and wives, both of us. We need to show that loving relationship. One of the important things that our young people are learning is how to relate to people for the opposite sex. When they see father relating with mother and mother relating to father, they learn how should a man, for young boys, how should a man treat his wife? And for young women, how should I expect to be treated by my husband? And how should I as a wife treat my husband? And it's not just like you do an example and okay, at the dinner table, we're going to show an example, and then the rest of the time you can kind of fake it. Because all this is spiritual. It's not just what you practically see. That is obviously makes an impact. But who we are, it comes through. It comes through. Regardless of, well, we only fight in the corner, when no one sees. Well, sometimes the kids need to see us fight. They need to see us fight in a healthy way. In other words, we can have differences and disagreements. And they need to see that it's okay to disagree, and it's possible to resolve disagreements. If our children are ever going to see us fight in front of each other, they need to be sure to see us resolve it. They need to see an example of us resolving that, coming to terms with that. So our relationship of husband and wife is very important because we're modeling. And for us dads, it's real important that we show our children that they know, that they have no doubt about how much we love their mom, how deeply and profoundly we are grateful for and love our moms, our wives, their moms. Next, our children need to experience love from us. They need to, even though sometimes us as dads, I love my kids, I work hard, I make money, I put food on the table, I'm doing all this kind of stuff for the sake of my kids. Of course I love them. But also we need to make sure that they also know it. Remember that study? It didn't talk about whether you were a good father or a bad father, or whether the father said, I really love my children. It was how the children perceived their father, their mother, the perception. So as dads, we need to invest that. Now, again, that doesn't mean we should become moms. Because we need also to be the ones that are we're the judgmental ones, much more judgmental in general than dads, than moms. We're not happy if they don't get good grades. We're not happy if they are not doing what they should be doing. And that's there, but that's also love, because we care. And when our children experience and know that we care, they're like, oh yeah, whatever you do is fine. No, that doesn't give children strength. That we care, and it's important what they do. That gives them strength. Well, okay, it means something, whether I accomplish or whether I don't. So dads and moms. Moms is a little bit easier and more automatic. You usually have more time too. But dads, let's focus on making sure that our children can experience that fatherly love, God's masculine love, through us. And finally, because most often, and it's not universal, but most often, the dad is the one who's out interacting with the world the most. Now, a lot of us, both of us are working. So this actually applies to both of us as parents. But our children need to see us feeling and experiencing happiness through making a difference in the world around us. Moms, a lot of times, your main difference is, especially if you're home, is at home. Hey, and there's a big difference that you're making by taking care of the home and taking care of the family. And that's a double-time job, definitely. But also, our young people and our children learn from that. But also, they need to see and understand how we interact with a larger world, trying to make a difference. And they need to see us, honestly speaking, even if I have the most miserable job, they need to see us come back and see that even though I don't like my job, there's the good things that I found because I was able to make something beneficial to other people today. You know, I was answering the phone, man, I got tired, but I had one call that was really kind of nice. Even being able to share these real life experiences with our family. And for us, we also need to be people who are constantly looking, how am I making a positive difference in the world around me? How, in whatever circumstances, school or work or just shopping, how am I making a positive difference? Making a difference. How am I serving others, benefiting the world around me? When children can see, especially the dad, but any parents who are out working, see parents expressing happiness and fulfillment, even with the most difficult job. You know, we don't just bring home, oh, I hated this, I hated this, I hated this. Well, that's fine. I mean, it's okay to share because that's the real world. A lot of times we hate things that we have to do. But also we need to be sure we bring back the good stuff. Because there's good stuff. There's great stuff that happens in our life, in our work situation, in school situation. And we need to practice bringing those good experiences back and sharing them with our family. Bringing some positive energy and from the outside world, especially, you know, when the mom and the kids are young and they're just home all day and their whole universe is just home, maybe to school and back, and it's a small universe. Well, dads, or those who are out working, were important to bring that outside world in to the home, and so that they can experience that and understand that. Modeling is the way we truly teach. Regardless of the words that we say, and it's the actions that we do that genuinely teach. So in our lives, let's look at what kind of models we're being. I want to conclude with this reading from Father Moon's autobiography. It's actually in the first chapter, and it's quite touching. It is Father Moon saying, "I would often fall asleep in the hills after playing there. My father would be forced to come and find me. When I heard my father shouting in the distance, 'Young, young, young, young,' I couldn't help but smile, even as I slept." My name as a child was Young Young. That was Father Moon's name when he was a child. So even as he slept, he'd hear his, and he would smile. The sound of his voice would awaken me, but I would pretend to still be asleep. He would hoist me onto his back and carry me home. That feeling I had as he carried me down the hill, feeling completely secure and able to let my heart be completely at ease, that was peace. And he concludes this section with, "That is how I learned about peace, while being carried on my father's back." So dads and moms, let's be those parents that give our children a genuine strength to be able to make a difference in the world. Please join me in prayer. Good morning, our beloved Heavenly Parent, Father, Mother, God. We come to you as grateful children. There's so many blessings that we have in our lives, and we can never be grateful enough. And we're sorry that oftentimes we forget those blessings, and we focus on all the things that are wrong. And even though you want to share the greatest love with us, we close our hearts and our minds to experiencing that love. Heavenly Parent, today as we celebrate and remember fathers, we're so grateful for the way that you're working in each one of our lives to be vessels of your love, and especially that we can express that love to our children and to the world around us. We pray that we can become true models that reflect your love, your original nature, in that divine ability to make a positive difference in the lives of the people we touch. Heavenly Parent, we come before you grateful and determined to be those true sons and daughters that bring joy to you and comfort and healing to this world. As your sons and daughters and as blessed central families, I offer up this prayer in the name of the Wattvilles. Amen and adieu. Okay, let's please take a minute and turn to your neighbor and share thoughts about the sermon.